Hello, I'm Mary Straubhaar. I'd like you to know a little bit about my life. I'll begin at the time I was married to John Albert Zumbrennen on June 18, 1896. He was 25 and I was 22 years old at the time. He had emigrated to America from Switzerland 5 years before I did. I first met him when we were on our way from the train by wagon on our immigration. When we went through Bear River at that time, there were no bridges and the water was so deep that it ran over our wagons and we had to get on top of the trunks to escape the water. In the party that came to meet us was a young boy by the name of Zumbrennen. I can remember him telling me in the Swiss language along with some English to put my feet up so I wouldn't get wet. I've always said my life began when I married John. Our first baby Madeleine Deldy was born, in Montpellier, in November of 1896. She died 7 weeks later with pneumonia. Libby was born in Coqueville on the old Stoner Ranch in December of 1897. We moved back to Montpelier where Johnny was born in May of 1899, Roscoe was born in August of 1901 and Mildred was born in June of 1903. In 1904 we moved to the Stoner Ranch in Coqueville. Rudy was born there on March of 1905. Lillian was born there in October of 1906. Richard was born on the ranch in June of 1908. He lived only 14 days. His grave was unmarked and has been lost. In 1909 we took up a ranch by the Coqueville graveyard. William was born in July of 1909 and James was born in October of 1911. It was there that our home burned down. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning on January 7, 1912. Lillian and I were sitting beside the heater. I was holding my 3-month-old son James. I looked up through the roof and exclaimed, "Our house is on fire." Arousing the rest of the family, we all ran outside in our night clothes and just stood there and watched our home go up in smoke. We did not save anything. Just our night clothes and our shoes that we hurriedly put on because the ground was covered in snow. Our nearest neighbors, the Wormolds, came running over. After the house was completely burned, we went over to their home where she fixed us some breakfast. We moved into a cabin on the Stoner Ranch. We lived in Coqueville until school was out. Then in the summer we moved to Raymond, Idaho, where we bought 80 acres of ground. I had 2 sisters and a brother living there and I wanted to be near them. We lived in a little shack on my brother John's land while my husband built us another log home. This time with good brick chimney. Aaron was born there in June of 1914, Helen was born there in May of 1916 and our last child, David, in February of 1919. We farm-raised wheat and hay. The biggest time and get-together was when we threshed our grain. Each family in Raymond took their turn at threshing. Everyone helped each other and it was fun and exciting. The threshing machine pulled by 3 horses separated wheat from the straw. My sisters and I took turns in having Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's dinners. We were 3 large families. We got together often for some reason or another. My sisters were much better off than we, as they had lots of land and milk cows. They sold a lot of cream, cheese, and udder and raised acres of hay and grain. Most of our social life was participating in the church activities and school. I always kept a cow to supply milk. One cow we called Cherry and she was a bright red. I milked and loved to make butter and cheese. Being from the beautiful Alps and all. We also kept chickens and a pig or 2 and we always grew a beautiful garden. In 1913, I was set apart as Assistant Secretary of the Relief Society in Raymond. My sister Lizzie chose me as her assistant and then in 1916 my sister Lizzie died and then I took over the whole secretary's job. I did that job as long as we lived there. In 1923 we moved to the Leyland phosphate mine located 10 miles from Cokeville, Wyoming, where John, my husband, was manager for about 1 year. I did the cooking for the miners. It was that same year that our son John lost his life in the Frontier mine disaster explosion near Kemmer, Wyoming, with 98 other men. That was one of the biggest jolts that came into my life. Had it not been for my other children, I don't know what I would have become of me. We built a home in Cokeville with the life insurance proceeds from John's death. In 1922, I was chosen second counselor in the first Relief Society organized in Cokeville. Minerva Tegert's original painting, The Quilters, depicts that Relief Society presidency. In the piece, standing is Martha Dean as president, in the middle is myself, as second counselor, and Sarah Dayton as first counselor. This painting currently hangs in the Relief Society room today in Cokeville. Eventually the church would own the original painting because of its value. I was Minerva Tegert's visiting teacher at one time. She would become a rather famous Western artist. In 1931 my husband John died of a heart attack in the Soda Springs, Idaho hospital. He is buried in the Montpelier graveyard with our parents and our son John. Roscoe's wife Louisa passed away in 1935. Roscoe and his 5 girls Rhoda Marie, Ina Jean, Helen, and twins Elma and Elna moved in with me, Rudy, Bill, Jimmy and David. My daughter Mildred Louise died February 12, 1939 as a result of a train accident. She left 4 children. June went to live with my daughter Libby. The other children went to different homes. To put my children through school, I took in washing, ironing, and cared for children in my home. I also did midwife work. David's job was to take the chamber pot to the girls so they wouldn't wet the year bed. We didn't have indoor toilets until 1940. Roscoe later died suddenly from a blood clot on April 1, 1948. William died on December 19, 1950 in a hit-and-run accident. He was driving from Green River to Rock Springs. He swerved to miss a big truck and rolled his truck. He got out and was walking on the road towards the Log and Supper Club near Rock Springs for help when he was struck by a vehicle. He left Margaret and 5 children: John, Jay, David, Patricia, and Terry. I had 3 sons who served in the armed forces in World War II. James and Rudy in the Army and David in the Navy. At this time, I have 3 grandsons in the service. During the war, I knitted 50 sweaters for the Red Cross. I have had many sad experiences in my life, all of which made me stronger and braver. I lost both parents and buried 5 children and 2 babies. I could not have lived through all of the hardships and bad health and lived to this age of 83, if it had not been for my faith. I had been a topic teacher for 15 years, but due to an infection in my leg I had to give up teaching, but I continued to teach. In my life I learned to yodel, care for the sick, do midwife work, cook meals and bake bread, milk cows, make cheese and butter, and do sewing of all kinds. I'm still making rugs, sewing, baking bread, doing my own work, washing and cooking at the age of 83. My prayers have been answered many, many times. At this writing in June of 1957, I have 29 grandchildren and 23 great-grandchildren. I died on April 4, 1959 at my home in Cokeville, Wyoming. I am buried next to my husband John in the Montpelier graveyard.